Okay, Lenin's Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, explained. While words like imperialism and colonialism get thrown about by liberals and anarchists, when Marxists talk about imperialism, we have a very specific definition. And it's not just simply big country takes over small country. Imperialism describes a very specific stage of capitalism, in fact. What is that specific stage of capitalism? Lenin recognized that within the 20th century, finance and monopoly capitalism had combined to create finance monopoly capitalism. This was their evil little hell, baby. What does this mean? This means that banking and industrial monopoly capitalists combined to become ever more powerful than even the capitalism of Marx's time. Because Marx was operating under when capitalism still had a little bit of free competition, you could say. Though Marx also did recognize that capitalism tended towards monopolization. The combination of banking and industrial capital into finance monopoly capital, was the ultimate form of monopolization, but never before seen. 2, this devil baby, finance monopoly capitalism, divides up the world into spheres of influence. Think of the great European powers and the spheres of influence they gained, or America, whose sphere of influence during the 20th century was Latin America, which it defended under the so-called Monroe Doctrine, in which it told other European powers, keep your nose out of Latin America. This is our domain. And that wasn't for the benefit of the Latin Americans, it was for the benefit of American finance monopoly capital. 3, this finance monopoly capital starts investing capital into its spheres of influence. Now, what is capital? Capital is surplus value that finance monopoly capital got from other workers, right? So it's surplus value that it gained from workers that it invests in order to exploit more workers. And so in doing so, in dividing up the world into spheres of influence and investing into these spheres of influence, finance monopoly capital was able to draw out great reserves of wealth. Because this capital that it invested in wasn't for the benefit of these countries, it was to exploit the workers of these countries and draw out as much wealth as possible and concentrate it into the hands of very powerful monopolies within, let's say, imperial core countries of Western Europe in the 20th century. And finally, 4, with these finance monopoly capitalists having nowhere left to expand, having divided up the whole world, the inevitable conclusion is inter-imperialist conflict. Let's say you're Great Britain and you've divided up the world as much as you can, and Germany is your rival, and it's also divided up the world into spheres of influence as much as it can. And there's no much room for you guys to expand anymore. You guys were peacefully cooperating as long as there were new lands to conquer, put into your spheres of influence, invest capital into to get out money. But now there's no more places left on Earth to expand. How do we resolve this? War. In fact, world wars for the redivision of spheres of influence on Earth. And so this is the proper general trend of capitalism that Lenin acknowledged was happening and was going to repeat happening over and over again. No matter how long we have capitalism will always inevitably tend towards finance monopoly capitalism forming. This finance monopoly capital dividing the world into spheres of influence, it investing capital into these spheres of influence and exploiting them, essentially, and then it going into world wars to fight for the redivision of these spheres of influence between other imperialist powers. And this pretty much explains World War I, which saw Germany lose her colonies within Africa to European powers, World War II, which was fought to almost the same effect, except this time with a fascist threat that attempted to colonize Europe also. And also our current pseudo World War III right now. That, of course, is an asymmetrical World War III because we now live in the era of nukes. Oh my god, that's not a nuke. Since we live in the era of nuclear warfare, we do have to do asymmetrical world war, but we still are seeing the big imperialist powers of the world attempting to redivide up the spheres of influence for their investments of capital to extract those resources. And so this is what is meant by imperialism in the Marxist sense. And this is called moribund capitalism. It is the final stage of capitalism. Capitalism does not develop any further from here. This is capitalism in its final, ugliest forms, and it's also a capitalism that is the most unstable. Capitalists start fighting each other in big world-enveloping conflicts. And so it is either barbarism or socialism in our current stage of capitalism. Either they will destroy us in endless world wars and conflicts, petty conflicts over spheres of influence to invest capital into, or we will overcome them under the scientific banner of socialism and humanity.